This is the Morning Sports Desk with CJ and Corey on a Monday, the 15th of April. I'm CJ Baumgartner. There is Corey Tackman. And Corey, a little bit new setup for me. We're slowly but surely trying to make this look like a professional podcast.
Should we make like a 90s sitcom, like intro to this? We're like, this is the Morning Sports Desk with CJ and Corey. And then you go, hi, I'm CJ. And then go, hi, I'm Corey.
Yeah, I think.
And then right back to you. Welcome in. It's the 15th of April. It's tax day. What's new in the world of sports? Dun, 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 dun. You know, we could kind of hit it hard that way.
Oh, you see, I thought you were going like for the 90s sitcom of like I was going to be by myself and I'd be like, I'm CJ Baumgartner. And then all of a sudden you'd come in like shot and then you just make some kind of one-liner and then the crowd would go, whoa! Like, you know what I mean? Like the crowd just goes crazy, like where even everybody on set has to kind of go,
the last person, and Corey Tackman as Corey Tackman.
Right, exactly. It's like the like every sitcom episode has the uncle whatever comes to town and he's sure a handful.
Here, we could practice it right now. Are you ready? You do the and Corey Tackman as Corey Tackman part. Okay, are you ready?
Okay, hold on. Actually, here, let's do this. Okay. Hi, I'm CJ Baumgartner.
And I'm Corey Tackman.
Yeah, real professional podcast today, Corey. We're off to a great start. For those of you who are
I hate everything about how pretentious that makes me look and feel. I didn't like that at all.
Sometimes you got to get through the bad ideas to realize which ones are the good.
I could do it this way too. And I'm Corey Tackman. I could come in from slide in from the side like that.
Yeah, I think so. Every time it's just an elaborate way of introducing yourself onto the camera. So some days you're coming up from the bottom. Some days you're like Spider-Man dangling yourself down from the ceiling.
How high does this chair go? I could drop down, just have it be on my chest the whole time.
Yeah,
then I could drop in like this. And I'm Corey Tackman.
And then I go, nice of you to drop in. Yeah, it'd be great. We could do it. Nobody would listen or watch, but we could do it.
It's just for us, and that's all this would be for.
Just for us and to us only.
By the way, most people who take it in audioly. So no, it's totally irrelevant to just about everybody also.
It's a plug to go check out the Hubbard Radio-Wadena YouTube page.
That's exactly right. I wonder, could I do like a sideways thing?
This very on-air production meeting stuff of that. Yeah.
And I'm Corey Tackman.
Oh, hello there. Like just kind of find different ways to introduce yourself each episode.
Flip all of this, CJ. All right, let's go.
All right, so the sports podcast is finally going to talk some sports here. Locally, we have a game today on the Superstation, K106, 105.9 FM, streaming online worldwide at WDenaRadio.com and the Superstation K106 mobile app. It was a game that was supposed to be played tomorrow, but impending weather this week, really after today, is kind of going to be a mess. So Wadena, Deer Creek, and Parkers Prairie trying to get that game in today. It's going to be in Parkers Prairie, 4:15 pregame, 4:30 first pitch. Wolverines have had a nice little start to the season, got a win under their belt. They've gotten some games underneath them. The Parkers Prairie Panthers are off to a really nice start to the season, getting some big conference wins over Berthoud at Verndale, getting a big conference and section win over New York Mills, and a big section win over Belgrade, Brute, and El Rosa. Parkers Prairie, New York Mills, and BBE all finished in the top three in Section 6A last year, and Parkers Prairie has wins over both of them. Just a really nice start to the year for Coach Denny and company.
Turns out they play a little baseball in that town too.
They do.
No, it should be. I'm happy we're getting. They decided and worked together to get this game in this afternoon. On top of everything else, like you said, we're taking a little step back as far as weather from this past weekend goes. I don't know, probably more typical mid-April weather for us this week. Some April showers, hopefully going to bring some Mayflowers, and hopefully allow us to play a little baseball this afternoon. The two teams in it are in the last, when you go back a decade now, right? It's kind of perennially at the top of the conference. It's Wadena, Deer Creek, and Parkers Prairie and New York Mills typically doing battle with each other. So for the last decade or so, this has been a good rivalry. It'll be fun to have on the air.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Two teams that are well coached, two teams that have been to state tournaments time and time again and are always towards the top of the Park Region Conference. That's why we like to put those games on the schedule, Corey. You get those two teams going at it. Also intrigued to see, the last time I called a game at the Parkers Prairie baseball field was a couple years ago, and that was when they were just starting the groundwork of kind of the renovation of the grandstand and press box at their ball field. So I'm excited to see this afternoon the finished product, because I've driven past it a couple times and it looks really nice.
Yeah, and just make sure you give Coach Denny a hard time on behalf of anybody and everybody, and be prepared to take it back because he's not shy.
Now, I can't give Coach Denny too hard of a time. We're Bertha Hewitt guys, so we got that going.
It's even more reason to give him a hard time, I think.
I think so. I saw him last summer because there was the all-school reunion for Bertha Hewitt.
Oh, sure.
We both were saxophoners in Ken Nelson's marching band.
Sure.
My band for the summertime. So we also got that going for us. So we're connected for life that way.
I was wondering what that honking noise was coming from that past summer. That explains everything.
Yeah, I was wondering why you needed to make a trip to the ear doctor, but that was just me. Yeah. Anyway, it should be a good one. It's really fun. Wadena Deer Creek lost 5-3 was the final score to Pillager. Pillager's a really nice 2A team, like Wadena Deer Creek. Pillager, a team, and talking with their coach before the game, and we talked with AD Moen on Friday. Go listen to that. Apple Podcast, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, WDenaRadio.com, or the Superstation K106 mobile app, the Hubbard Radio Wadena YouTube page. Go listen to Friday's episode. He was great. Husky fans, he was awesome. Talking with that, and their team is awesome this year. Imdek pitched 6+ strong innings on the mound, hit a home run, a 3-run home run that ended up being the difference maker in the ball game. And overall, if you're Wadena Deer Creek, you had a couple errors here and there. You couldn't get runners home in a couple different spots. So they had some chances. So if you're Coach Dykoff, you take the early season lumps and obviously a little bit of turnover compared to the last couple of years' teams. It should be a good one, and both teams we know are well coached in Wadena Deer Creek and Parkers Prairie. That it should be one that should go, down to the wire. Sounds a little, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic in a sense of like it's going to be a steel cage match in a sense, but it's going to be, when the game is over, I feel like we're going to say that was a very nice ball game from both sides.
Can't wait. Let's do it.
Can't wait. Superstation K106 105.9 FM, streaming online at WadenaRadio.com, the Superstation K106 mobile app, 4:15 pregame, 4:30 first pitch. Okay, Corey, a couple of other things that we need to get to today. Let's first talk about the Minnesota Twins, and then we'll let the second half of the show be all about the Timberwolves. So the Twins, they split in a series in Detroit. We'd feel a lot better about that series if they didn't blow a 3-run lead in the 8th inning and lost 4-3 to the Detroit Tigers. And the other thing on the weekend is that Carlos Correa is out with what was originally believed to be an oblique. They changed that to more of a rib injury. So that means the timeline is going to be a little bit shorter for Carlos Correa to come back. Overall, how do you rate the Twins in kind of their last 4 games?
Well, I mean, I don't like the split. I don't feel great about the split with Detroit. That doesn't make me feel good on the inside. They're 6-8 through their first 14.
Not ideal.
Not horrible, not ideal. 10-5, 10-6 for Cleveland and Kansas City, 9-6 for Detroit, and then the White Sox stink. They're 2-13. They're not. It's if you want the 30,000-foot perspective on this, fine. They're fine. It's not great news, obviously. I don't think it's dire news by any means either. I don't know. Is it too simple to say like it's just early and there's 148 games left in the regular season or whatever, and hopefully they get it sorted out? Is that too simple of a breakdown on this, or are we getting into red flag season, right?
There's a couple different red flags. One is the Carlos Correa injury, obviously, because Correa, he said this on Friday when he left the game. He's like, the frustrating thing about this for him, the most frustrating, was that this was the first April, he's like, where I just came into a season hitting the ball well. Like he's like, I just felt like coming out of spring training, I could see the ball well. I was making good contact. He's like, it's frustrating now that I have to put this on pause. He officially got put on the 10-day IL. And if it was an oblique, it'd likely be longer. I can't remember what the official diagnosis is, but it's basically a rib injury. And the timeline is shorter. The pain that he's feeling still isn't necessarily less. But the timetable goes from 2 to 6 weeks, maybe to 2 to 3 weeks, which is definitely a lot better for Carlos Correa. The thing about it, it's not just losing Correa, but it's who you have to fill with, because ideally you go, well, that's okay. Royce Lewis can just play shortstop. Okay, right. He's on the IL. Okay, well, Brooks Lee, come up and play shortstop. Oh, he had some back spasms. He's still out for a couple more weeks. Okay, Willie Castro play shortstop. And not only that, Kyle Farmer play third base. And we saw Kyle Farmer play third base and, well, botched the game yesterday. It's why it's shocking in a way that, and I'm not a Kyle Farmer hater. I like a lot of what Kyle Farmer did last year. But if Willie Castro has passed him as the backup shortstop, and now at third base, Farmer's not looking particularly strong, it feels like the Twins are paying $6 million for a backup second baseman, which isn't necessarily ideal either. And obviously Carlos Santana's been a negative. Matt Wallner's been a negative. I think overall, here are the big takeaways for me on the weekend. One, I'm not scared of Detroit now that I've seen them 4 games in a row on their home field. Their pitching is great at the top. They don't have the depth, and their hitting's not that good, and they don't field very well. So
that's everything.
That's everything. So yeah. I'm not over a 162 game sample size. I am not scared of the Detroit Tigers. That's not saying that they're going to be 88 losses and they're going to be horrible, but they're in no way should the Twins be scared that the Tigers are going to win 96 games this year. Does that make sense? That's my big takeaway with that. The other one is that the infield defense is going to be really bad for a while.
Well, and I would, this isn't a pushback, but one of the reasons why you pay Kyle Farmer $6 million a year is because everyone's hurt all the time. So I guess when you put it into that perspective, it's okay. Right. Kyle Farmer's going to start for someone in the majors. If he wasn't with the Twins, he'd be a starting third baseman or shortstop or second baseman for someone somewhere, and he gets to be your backup, and you have him for Royce Lewis, who can never stay healthy, as a backup, and Carlos Correa, who's now, this little injury is the start of year number 3 of, is he just going to have an injury-plagued another season in a Twins uniform? So that's why you have Kyle Farmer. I get in the vacuum, you don't like paying that much money to a guy who's going to blow it, but there's a premium for a guy at a position that you're going to need a backup for. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just the other,
It's a rough day to look at his contributions after he made an error that kind of snowballed.
Right. But he was never meant to be the full-time guy at any of those positions anyway. So, to throw him under the bus for that is not, and I'm not saying you were, but to throw him under the bus for that is not entirely fair to him, because that's not what he's on this team is. That's not what he's on the team for.
Right. Now the Twins get to go to Baltimore to take on the Orioles for 3 games. And then things start to get easy. It's like Chicago, Detroit, Chicago to end the month of April. So things get pretty easy for the Twins after this 3-game series. And this is why when you look at the AL Central, and this will be my last point on the Twins and we can move on, is look at the Twins haven't necessarily had an easy schedule. They played Kansas City, who's 10-5. They won 2 out of 3. They split with Milwaukee, who's off to a nice start. Then they played, I believe it was the Guardians. They lost 2 there. That game got rained out. Then they lost 2 of 3 to the Dodgers. They split in a series with Detroit. They're 6-8. It's not terrible. But if you look at who the Guardians played the Yankees, and they got shellacked 3 out of 4 games. Was not close. When you look at the Tigers, they've played the Mets and the White Sox and the A's, and same with the Guardians. And I think that we got to be careful about judging, and this is myself included. I'm not really scared of any team. I don't think that, like what you talked about at the beginning, I'm not scared that the Twins are all of a sudden too far back and those other teams are going to run away with anything. It's just not an ideal start for a club. And it feels like nothing's coming easy right now in the first month for the Twins, which maybe is if they can hold water and be 500 through the first month and you get Correa back and the Guardians and the Tigers come back and the Royals come back down to earth a little bit. things will work out for the Twins. I'm not hitting panic buttons on the season just yet is my main takeaway.
The only thing I would add on to that is if you're any of these other teams, are you scared of the Twins?
No, I don't.
So that's the other, I mean, but this is also an indictment on what everyone has said about the division since before the season started. It's not a good division, and these are probably not great teams. And I think the indication here in the early going is that we were all right. The Central Division is not that strong. So from a Twins perspective, you're right. I don't know that I'm scared of anybody in the division. I don't think they're scared of the Twins either.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I think that's a good way to look at it. So let's move on and finish the last part of the sports desk talking about the old Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Had a chance on Friday night. Cat came back. It was a tough win, but they beat the Hawks, and they were tied in a 3-way split for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They would have needed to win and have they would needed to win and have OKC lose to take that number 1 spot. If OKC won, they got the 1 seed. Denver was out of the 1 seed after losing to the Spurs, but the Wolves did not play a great game against the Suns, turned the ball over 19 times in the first half, which I believe tied an NBA record. And
I think 13 of them were in the first quarter too.
Yuck. And so they lost to the Suns.
Yeah.
They lost to the Phoenix Suns, who coincidentally is who they're going to be playing in the first round of the postseason. The Wolves, I think, went 1-4 against the Suns in the regular season. Something like that. They did not play well against Phoenix during the year, and now they get the 3 seed, a matchup with the 6th seeded Suns. And we talked about trying to stay away from New Orleans. Phoenix might have been the team you wanted to stay away from more, and that's who they're going to end up playing in the first round. So, Corey, before we get into playoff stuff, just give me your thoughts on the final couple games of the season and the Wolves ending up as the 3 seed before we look and preview the series.
I mean, obviously not ideal. The last 2 times they played Phoenix, they were without Carl, and then with Carl just back from an injury. This might be my rose-colored glasses on the last game of the year, but maybe the Timberwolves weren't full-hearted into this game, and to giving up game plans and strategies and things like that. I don't know. I might be reading too much into that, wanting to read too much into that, to call myself out, I guess. But one of the things that has shown up over the season, in the entire season, is when the Timberwolves don't want to take a game seriously, they really don't take it seriously. There's no level of standard of excellence, standard of professionalism. Ant has said it about himself in interviews, like Finchie's calling me out, I need to. They don't take games that they don't have to take seriously, which is a problem. And I sometimes think that everyone gets up for big games. I understand that, but if you don't take the little things seriously in insignificant games, then sometimes I think you can overreact in big games, and all of a sudden you get tight because maybe it's not working into your advantage. I don't like that aspect of this team going into the playoffs. Now, the other side of that coin is, CJ, they take serious things seriously, and there's nothing more serious than the first round of the playoffs. So I don't expect them to come out flat or lazy or uncaring. They can potentially show against a team like Atlanta in the second to last game of the year, or maybe Phoenix when it gets weird, they just totally check out.
Right. And I think too, there's that overamping possibility that you mentioned earlier, where maybe they come out and they're a little too hyped up and they're like, this is big, we got to come out and make a statement. And then because I think the turnovers are a thing, and they can either come from a couple different areas. They can come from a team being sloppy and a team not caring, and a team I'll just make this pass, whatever. But I also think they can come from a spot of a team that presses, like you talked about, of a team that tries to be like, this game is important, we need to make some big plays, let me try and force this pass. This game's important, let me lob this one up. Oh shoot, I overthrew it. kind of a deal. And I think I didn't watch much of the game yesterday. I just had stuff going on, but I think that lends itself more than the Wolves didn't show up. Like you talked about, this is a game that they would get up for. So it's more of that second one where they overamp themselves a little bit and put too much pressure on themselves. And then now they're stuck in this situation. Another interesting thing about this game and the time before that the Wolves have played Phoenix is that Bradley Beal, after both games, has talked about their philosophy of guarding Anthony Edwards. And it's basically just triple team him and force him to make the right passes, force him to make the right reads, but also hack him in a sense. Like I'm putting words in his mouth when I say hack a Ant, but basically what they're saying is we are going to be super rough on him. We're going to force the officials to call fouls on us. And the Wolves fans will go, typical, we don't get a whistle kind of thing, which maybe that a little bit goes into that. But also that's a young player. We're going to beat him up a little bit and we're going to see if he can hold his composure. And yesterday, Anthony Edwards wasn't able to do that. Him and Beal got into it a little bit.
Yeah, and it will be a feature that could rear its head come playoff time.
Because they swallow the whistle in the playoffs.
Well, and Phoenix is going to stay patient.
Right.
They've got KD on that team who's been through it all, and Booker who's been through a lot, and Beal hasn't really gone through anything. That guy's weird, but this is going to be a team that's going to have a little more. The Timberwolves could win the first two games of the series, and it's not good. It's not over.
Right.
And Timberwolves fans are going to be rightfully so ecstatic, and I will be one of them. But they're going to have to go to Phoenix, and there's going to be a level of composure needed in this sort of series because of what Beal said, because of how Ant handles his business. And I'm not criticizing Ant, but those are things that can he be the correct playmaker in the right moment, or is he just going to lower his shoulder? And sometimes the play calls for that. Sometimes it calls for kicking to a guy in the corner. There are just some nuances that he's going to have to be able to handle really for the first time in his career and in this series.
Right. It's going to be fascinating because this is the first playoff series where the Wolves have expectations, and maybe the Wolves will open as underdogs in the series. That doesn't matter. You're the 3 seed. You are expected to win. I don't care who you're playing. You're the 3 seed. You up until the final day of the season, you were in a 3-way tie for the number 1 team in the West, which by extension makes you the second best team in the NBA. You're not the 7 or 8 seed that plucked their way out of the play-in. You're a team that should be expected to compete with anybody. There's a lot of doom and gloom from Wolves fans after drawing Phoenix, and I get it. They've been a nightmare matchup for Minnesota this season, but dang it, you were one of the best teams in the NBA all season long. Go win the series. That's my thing. Like, I'm not into oh man, they drew the Suns. Whoa, us, our one good season in 30 years, and this is what's going to go beat them. There's no reason they can't. It's going to be tough. There's no reason why the Wolves can't. I know there's some stuff you want to talk about with this playoff series, Corey. So,
well, there's a couple things. First of all, the Suns are actually odds-on favorite according to Vegas.
Yes.
So the Suns are which is, I know we like to make fun of sometimes gambling and betting, and we've had our few gripes about how some media reporter who's hired by a gambling company reports something like there's
right.
Some sketchy things, but one of the things that is often true about end results is Vegas odds. They don't get it wrong very often.
Right.
Now it's close.
Money off that for a reason.
It's close, but the Suns are the betting favorites right now. I came across a TikTok video though. I thought you would appreciate this. He came up with this formula to determine the NBA champion. Okay. And according to him, because I've not watched all this video, I just came across it. According to him, he picked the 2023 champion using this formula.
Sure.
So here we go. Here is the formula to finding your NBA Finals teams and champions. The first part is 28 out of the last 30 champions had a top 10 points per game scorer or rebounder.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So that narrows it down to Dallas, Milwaukee, OKC, the Knicks, Miami, Sacramento, Denver, Golden State, Chicago, Boston, Atlanta, Phoenix, the Lakers, and the Timberwolves. Okay. The next step in this is a debatable top 10 player. I understand this is a loose category, but this is a debatable top 10 player. 29 of the last 30 champions have had a guy that you could be like, yeah, if you fudge the numbers this way, he's a top 10 player. That narrows it down to Dallas, Milwaukee, OKC, the Knicks, Phoenix, Boston, Denver, Golden State, Minnesota, the Lakers, and Sacramento. Okay, 11 of the past 12 champions have been top 10 in three-point percentage. Now we really cut into the CJ. Boston, Minnesota, Oklahoma City, Phoenix, Lakers, Golden State, Milwaukee. Okay, 38 of the past 40 champions have been top 12 in defensive rating,
which the Wolves are.
We narrow it down big time here. There's only 3 teams left: Boston, Minnesota, and OKC.
All right.
And 0 teams have ever won it all with an average age of under 24. So that leaves Boston and Minnesota as your finals teams. And according to this video, he's like, well, at this, now we just pick Boston because they've been there and they've done it and have the pedigree and the resume. But if you look at those statistics and want to break it down, the Timberwolves have as good of a chance as anyone to make the Western Conference Finals. We were talking about it out in the lobby. The Eastern Conference to make the finals seems as wide open as it's ever been. The Eastern Conference Finals, because outside of Boston, everybody else kind of stinks. Right. So that second team could pretty much just be anyone. The Western Conference feels like it's probably going to be Denver, but could really be anyone else because of how competitive, kind of for opposite reasons, the second team in the Western Conference Finals feels wide open. What do you feel? Do you like that Boston Minnesota prediction as a realist? Obviously, as a Timberwolves fan, you like it, but how about as a realist Minnesota and NBA fan?
You know what I think, Corey? You know what I think? I think Wolves back. I think that's where we're at, because here's the thing. I saw that too. And based on those numbers, the Wolves have as good of a chance as anybody to make the finals. And that's a good way of stepping outside of the Minnesota sports. Well, we just never win anything. Well, it's like that. They have the best season in 25 years and they get a playoff matchup that's not great. Like, if you're not going to win the finals, you're not going to have a playoff matchup where it goes, oh, I don't know if we're going to win that one. Like, you're going to have to be the best. You got to beat the best. And the Wolves picked themselves a tough first round matchup, but let's say the Lakers,
as if Phoenix hasn't been totally problematic all year long. Right.
They got the 6th seed for a reason. As if the Wolves, if they got the 2 seed and ended up playing the Lakers, people weren't going to go, oh, I don't know, the Lakers can beat the Wolves. Like, there weren't going to be people who are saying that anyways.
It's wide open. Everyone in the West can beat everyone. It does feel that way.
And if the Wolves get bounced by the Suns, it's not because the Wolves choked. The Suns are a good team. They're talented, but they're not defensively as strong as the Wolves are. And they're going to have to lean on that, and they're going to need to get just enough scoring to win. I agree. The Minnesota sports cynic in me says they're not going to win, but that's whatever. Like, I'm not listening to that guy right now. I'm going to keep my vibes good for the playoffs. I think the Wolves should win the series. I think it'll go to 7. Like, obviously, this is going to be a dogfight, but it's fine. Go win the series. Just go do it.
I actually don't feel like I need to talk myself into it.
I don't need to talk myself into
it. I think a lot of Timberwolves fans are
they're panicking.
Are in that, like, well, panicking, but they're like, this has been really fun and this team is really good. So even though I'm really scared, I'll still pick the Timberwolves. Right. I'll take it as I think they're going to win the series. Mm-hmm. I actually like just the Timberwolves are tough, man. What indication all season long says that they can't do that? And now I mean, other than the matchup, which they're 1-4 against the team that they're playing, I totally understand it. But these are going to be some dogfight games, man, or like rock fight games. These are going to be ugly basketball games. There's going to be a lot of games in this 7-game series where it's like 104-97.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like we're not even get to 100 points sometimes, I think. I can't wait. This is a very I'm anticipating a fun kind of playoff push here. And if it doesn't work out, meaning they don't win a championship or they get bounced in the first round, like think about how epic of a series this is going to be. It's fine. If they lose in 7 to Phoenix, that will be disappointing, but it'll be disappointing because they were good for the first time, not because they just they made it and let us down.
Right.
This is a totally different era of Timberwolves basketball that we have not seen since KG. I'm on board for this.
They every day that they walked into an arena, they had a chance to win. Every single game. Last year, even, there were games walking in where it's like they have no shot of winning that game. There was no game this year where the Wolves didn't walk in and a rational, neutral person could go, I don't see why the Wolves should lose this one. And why that disappears for the playoffs, it shouldn't. And that's going to be my positive takeaway. This isn't even like a positive spin. This is like, I know that the last game didn't work out well, but let's not get recency bias here. Let's look at the team that we saw for 82 games up until this point. So
who did they lose to last year?
In the first round, Denver.
Okay. Perfect example then, because I believe a year ago we had a conversation that centered around the idea of, can the Timberwolves win this?
Right.
And we both thought, yeah, they can win this, but will they? Nah, probably not. It's a totally different conversation this year. Right. It's not, can the Timberwolves get by Phoenix? It's weirdly like, are the Timberwolves going to blow it? And even though they're not betting favorites, but it's just, they're good. This is a totally different conversation. They should absolutely beat Phoenix.
And remember last year, it was the Wolves were the 8th seed. They barely made it into the playoffs. And at the end of the postseason, when Denver won the finals, they asked multiple Nuggets players, what was the toughest team you had to play in that stretch? It wasn't Miami. It wasn't the Lakers. It wasn't whoever they played in the second round. They said the Timberwolves gave us the toughest matchup, which means that just because a first round playoff matchup, I know it only went to 5 games, but the Wolves made them work for it. Just because you are the higher seed does not mean the first round of the playoffs is a cakewalk. This was always going to be a battle. So I don't know why all of a sudden we need to get apprehensive about this series.
I'm thrilled about an Anthony Edwards averaging about 29 points a game, though. I'm already I've got that feeling in the pit of my stomach of it's going to be so fun to watch this next level of Ant. Please show yourself, Anthony Edwards. I am so excited for this.
This has been the Morning Sports Desk for Monday, the 15th of April.